Hey, we're all good.
All right, it's 6:05. We'll call the meeting to order. Turn it over to you, Greg, for roll call.
All right, Chairman Canfield,
Here.
Beecham,
Here.
Homeowner,
Here.
Spicer is absent, will be here late, and Chauvin.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
I would, just in case she gets held up or something, but I would make a motion to excuse her absence, Tamala's absence.
I'll support.
All right, we have a motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to item 2, approval of the agenda.
I have no changes.
I don't either.
Okay.
I'll move we approve the agenda.
Support.
We have a motion and support. There's no further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3 is approval of the February 11th regular board meeting minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the February minutes as written.
I was gonna make a change first,
Oh, really?
Okay.
but we have a motion. I was just gonna note for the board comments about, on mine, there was like a grammar typo or something where it said turnover and highly experienced and high level. But it also just mentioned the DPW, or DWP. And so I thought I mentioned all the different positions. I was wondering if we could just rephrase that as the major turnover and highly experienced high-level positions in the city, and light and power. Leave it at that if we want, we can list people, but,
Okay.
All right, we have
yeah,
a
just to make
motion
that cleaner, that's
and a
all.
little change.
I'd like to motion to approve the changes as you requested.
Right. And I'll support.
All right, we have a motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment for items not on the agenda. Hearing no comment from the public, we'll move on to action items.
All right, I'm gonna turn that over to Steve tonight.
All right, we have a couple action items. The first is a material amendment in pricing. Last month, we had a number of items that were approved for the Rolls-Royce combustion turbine, one of which was the Square D. After we made the order, as I indicated in the memo, Gray Barn Square D, basically they furnished the drawings to OnPower. OnPower did a review and made sure everything would synchronize. And they came back to Gray Barn Square D and said that the drawings that were used for the quote, which were developed by Newkirk a few years ago, were not completely accurate, in that the drawings did not contain detail for a surge capacitor that we would need. Basically, a surge capacitor smooths the output of the generator, can protect equipment. So I'll let Doug explain a little bit more of this. This was brought to Greg.
Who is OnPower?
They're the ones providing the control panel
Okay,
for Rolls-Royce. They're actually part of Rolls-Royce.
okay.
So when we got the approval for OnPower to go ahead with the control panel, then they worked up some drawings, and I put them in contact with Square D, point of contact there, and they got talking, and the engineers were involved and looking at it. And the original drawing that I gave to Gray Bar Square D didn't have the surge capacitor in there. They went off the Solar before, which had the surge capacitor in the control panel itself. The Rolls-Royce does it a little bit different. So they needed that in there, and being the high voltage, it needed to be a 15 kV surge capacitor, which runs a little bit of money. So that's where the difference in the price came in. If we had gone with Newkirk, which was the other, quote, the same thing would have happened and probably would have cost us more. Cause they had, what, the drawing,
Their quote didn't have the surge
Right.
suppressor.
the drawing I gave them came from Newkirk, actually. So that's where we're at. It was actually, and that's why I put them, in contact with each other so they could, so that's where we're at.
Okay,
So Greg, we did talk with you a couple weeks ago and gave Greg a heads up, and he was okay with us going forward with the order since this is 6, 8, 10-week order. So the item has been ordered, but we still wanted to bring it to the board's attention to get approval from the board.
We'd already had some significant delays with our budget not being approved by the council, and we just didn't want to lose another 2 weeks.
I'm glad that you did move forward.
And the savings that we had also by going with Grave Bar offset most of this anyway. So we're still within that original budget figure that was approved by the board anyway.
And that's what I was gonna ask, so.
so I would make the motion to approve, the surge capacitor, from Square D of $13,150.
Now support.
All right, we have a motion and support. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the second action item we have tonight is the fiscal year 2017, which is July 1, 2016 through June 30, 2017 budget. This is a similar format that I brought to you in past years. Fiscal year 2014, fiscal year 2015 actual data, the 2016 budget, and what I project through the remainder of 2016. I'm going to go through my projection through the remainder of the year, and then what my initial budget is for 2017. So the process that I do this, I just want to make you guys familiar. I have 3 different methodologies, but I really take what I know is going to happen the remainder of the year, so just things that go on within the company. Okay, we know we have this coming up, or I've seen this, or this is what's going to happen. Change in personnel, things like that, as well as take the variance that we've experienced for the first 8 months for each GL, apply that variance to what I had budgeted from March through June, and come up with a new budgeted amount for March through June and add that to what's actually happened. So with that blend, I came up with my projection, and I show that revenue is going to be right on budget. So if nobody has any questions, I don't want to beat something up that is, I project, going to be about right on.
That's off by $400, right?
Well, in terms of percentage, we're within a, 10%, so.
That is right on.
Moving down to generation, yes, Barry?
I mean, can we just go, I understand the bottom line. My question, I mean, so I have an understanding, is more so, I'm not questioning where you're coming, but,
Right,
so if you look at, under commercial sales, GSD,
yes,
we're going down, in revenue 230,000, and that's
yeah, I was
because
gonna,
of Michigan Wire, is that because?
Yep. I was gonna go through the blue column first,
Okay,
and then
and
kind
then
of
go, okay.
work
How
our
are
way
we-
up, just
okay.
what we're gonna project, and then I'll go through how we're gonna budget next year,
Okay,
if that works.
yep,
Okay. Generation, projecting we're gonna be under budget mainly due to fuel, so we're gonna come in under budget there. And that's just due to the low prices in the market, for the cost of power, so we wouldn't be running our generator as much. Purchase power is really the main driver why our expenses will be under budget this fiscal year. I show that we're gonna be about $169,000 under, and that's mainly due to Campbell. This annual year, the Mtpa will not be requiring us to contribute as much towards the debt service for an additional contribution for future projects. So I just talked with the CFO there last week and found this news out because I was looking at our January bill. Because the February bill and March bill always reflects a few previous months. So that's gonna be a huge savings for us, as well as the buyout adjuster not producing as much as anticipated. Now that'll change for the next year, but those are a couple of the reasons why purchase power is projected to be under. Moving down to distribution, I project this to be over fiscal year 2016 budget, and this is mainly due to some things that have happened at the Atwood transformer. We've had some late night call-outs. We hired some new staff last year, earlier than I had thought, and the hope is that we can hire new staff yet this fiscal year that we hadn't planned on when I made this budget last April and May. So we are showing a overage on the distribution department, but it's mainly due to good things happening.
One question up on the purchase power.
Yes,
There's the transmission charge, and that's projected negative 50 and it turned out to be positive 10. And I guess I'm wondering what changed.
We're in a process now where transmission rates are going up, and our transmission rates primarily come from through the MISO, through the Midwest Independent Systems Operators. And it's, for example, we talked about this 3 years ago. New transmission was built out in the thumb for all the wind that's going out there, and that all gets spread over all the customers in the Midwest region. So that's one reason that transmission charges went up. So there's things like that going on all over the region for the Midwest Systems Operators, and that's just gradually causing the transmission rates to go up. Historically, we've had enough transmission capacity credits through Bell River and the combustion turbine in Calcasas to cover all our transmission costs, and we actually had credits there.
Oh, okay.
And so now it's changing. We're in that process where it's now flipping over, and we're gonna start having continual charges that have offset and now are causing an expense in the transmission.
And that'll just flip this year?
This is a year that is finally flipping.
Okay, because it looked like it was kind of steady. Well, I mean, we're only 3 years of data. But and then all of a sudden there's 10. So I was just wondering if that's some like rule change or something changed this, so something made it kind of flip.
It's just all the new transmission that's been built that's coming into the system.
Okay, so just kind of a coincident timing then.
Right.
Okay.
We still have all our credits. They're still there.
Right, they're just not offsetting the charges.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
okay, I think I just finished up distribution. Moving on to customer accounting. So we're gonna be under budget mainly due to EO. Marketing, general admin, outside service costs, both slightly under budget. Moving down to office, so we're gonna be slightly over budget, and that's mainly due to the property and liability insurance that we're paying for our turbines. I didn't have a exact price on that, and now I do. So that's the main driver for our overage there. Employee benefits, a slight overage due to PTO payouts we've had for retired staff, as well as the MERS contributions that affect that payout. So that's the reason for that. And then moving down, when you add it all up, show that we're gonna have an operating income a couple $100,000 higher than budgeted, which really flows all the way through the net income. I'm budgeting that we'll end up with $735,000 surplus compared to $521. So it's gonna be another good year. Is there any questions about my fiscal year 2016 projection? If not, we'll move to the fiscal year 2017 budget. The way I developed the budget this year, I had Megan our plant accountant, do a big project for me. She looked back at the previous 2 years of labor, where we're spending that labor, as well as all costs across the board, whether it's a phone bill or maintenance on a generator, whether it's cleaning or people that do inspections and come here for our fire extinguisher inspections, everything. So I took that labor cost that I know we're going to have next year, as well as some positions that I think we'll fill. I spread that labor on a prorated basis based on past years' results, and then took fixed expenses, looked at what we could eliminate, what we need to have, and came up with this budget. So that's the general process in terms of the expenses. In the revenue, where we'll start, I show a very slight increase in total revenue, 0.44%. We do have a new customer that'll be coming online in Visions. There will be an industrial customer. They'll be moving out of the Atwood facility into their own facility. They'll be moving from right now Atwood's billed at the GSDPM, which means we own the transformer. When they're at the Envisions facility, they'll own the transformer. So that's the reason you see a big decrease to the GSDPM rate of $182,000 and an increase to the GSDTO rate of $379,000. So their usage will be coming out of the Atwood facility into their own facility, and they'll be switching rates. The big decrease to the GSD rate is mainly due to Michigan Wire. They'll no longer be a customer. And then everything else is just a modest 1-2% growth, an increase in requirements with really, I don't project a rate increase. Is there any questions on the revenue side? All right. Going to generation. Again, this is hard because we don't know what the market will be.
I do have one question.
Yes?
I'm sorry.
That's right.
Where it says grant revenue,
Yes.
so we had 1875,
We received a $75,000 grant
okay,
For-
from the deed,
for the deed,
right?
and 56,250 was collected last fiscal year. 18,750 will be collected this fiscal year.
Okay. That's,
It'd be great if we could get another grant somewhere else, but I'm not banking on it, so that's why my budget is 0.
I mean, I remember, I just didn't know why the 18, which you explained it, out of that.
Yeah, we could bill in like 25%, then 50%, then 25%,
I
so
see.
that's the reason for that.
Okay, thank you.
Generation, a lot of the expenses are pretty typical to how we're gonna finish up this year with some placeholders in case we do need tools or some safety training. The biggest variable here is the fuel, depending on what the market is. I'm just putting $50,000 as a placeholder.
Why was it 75 for the previous year? Like budget? Was it just because the prices were higher? So
Prices were higher going into that year, but over the last year, they're just so low. So I don't know if I'm optimistic if there's gonna be as many days where the market's gonna be high enough
Okay.
to run. And also, the price of natural gas has come down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys, it's like below $3. In the past, it was between 4 and 5. So even if we do run a lot, the price of natural gas is lower, which is gonna directly impact our fuel costs.
Okay.
Because we're paying like spot market prices right now, so. The distribution side, compared to how we're gonna end up this year, I show a slight decrease, but this 389,000 reflects all new personnel, as well as just equipment and services that we typically have in the distribution department. So it'll be higher than last year's budget, but a decrease from our fiscal year 2016 projected. And a couple of the main reasons for the decrease is the substation overhaul. $30,000 of that substation overhaul is going in 2016's budget or numbers. So if you take away 30,000 from the 426, you're at 396, so it's fairly close. Moving down to customer accounting, pretty similar. You'll see a decrease in meter reading expenses due to the AMI system. I plan on having that $7,200 cost for the software fee to be in this line, as well as all tag, when we hang tags, the guys' labor will still go in here. Once we have the system up and running, I'll really be able to determine, you know, where the cost savings will be in some of these lines. Advertising, similar to last year. Admin, general, outside services. Increase in outside services. We're gonna be coming up on our 5-year study here. You have a copy of it, we'll get to that later in the board. Manager's report, and with that, there's gonna be increased engineering costs. So that's the reason for the increase in the outside services.
How much is the engineering?
We're not sure exactly what that cost will be yet, it hasn't been broken down, we just have an overall budget estimate. But we don't have it by category, so we'll just put a placeholder in there for the engineering.
And that's, how much?
The placeholder,
Yeah.
40,000.
So,
I mean,
so my question, because you'd brought it up at one of our previous meetings, because we use GRPS engineering, and the thought was,
don't really have much value even left in our system in terms of the meters. If you're talking 2,800 meters, $45,000, they're almost all depreciated. You know, not every single meter is going to be depreciated, but in terms of just how accounting works, we would have to say, okay, they're no longer part of our system. So, this is my first go around at it. If you have any questions, feel free to take them, but try to apply who we know is going to be here next year, where we've spent money in the past, what services we do need what things members of staff want in the next year, and talk about those and evaluate them and build them into the budget, so.
And I'm, the one, and it might be in here, and equipment wise, do we have something budgeted in here that we're putting away for truck replacement, for big ticket items? And the reason why, I mean, the city's gotten themselves, and hopefully they're working their way out of it, but they got in a bind because they weren't forward thinking of what equipment that they're gonna need to replace, plow trucks and everything, and they really got themselves in a bind, so.
Right.
I wanna even though that maybe we're not using it, but are we taking X amount of dollars and 20,000, 30,000 and putting it each year into an account so that when we need to go and purchase, a truck replacement, a big truck replacement? Cause,
We haven't.
okay,
That's the simple answer. In this budget, you'll see under the distribution section, the fourth to last item is tools,
Yep.
15,000. Those are non-capitalized tools, your smaller pieces of tools that are 500 to 1,000, 1,500 bucks. But your question is perfect in that I handed out a capital budget. I don't know, here you go, Tamala. I thought this would be a good time just to explain how the capital budget's derived. The second portion of this page is cash flow projection. So this operating report we just looked at, you can use the bottom little square we're looking at right now. You can use this operating report to determine how much cash you're gonna generate. So you have your operating revenue, which are all cash transactions. I take away our operating expenses, but in those operating expenses, there are a few that aren't actually cash transactions. Our OPEB cost is just an expense that hits the books, but it's not actually cash coming out of our bank account. Same with depreciation,
so what is OPEB?
other post-employee benefits.
Okay,
It's our, what we expect to pay in future healthcare costs.
okay,
As well as loss on property disposal, which are those meters. So I'm adding all those things back, and then I'm taking away the other non-operating expenses, which are like the pilot or our interest expense, as well as our bond principal. So when I take into account all of these things, I say, okay, if I'm to the penny, in each one of my GLs, we'll end the year positive with $1.066 million, which we can use for capital projects that the board, we have our long-term vision, this is what we want to do, and that's how we come up with dollars available for the capital budget. So in there this year, I'd like to make a transfer of $75,000 to almost like an escrow fund or a separate bank account saying, okay, we're generating this cash for capital projects. We're gonna take $75,000 of that cash, put it in a fund for vehicle replacement. Now we could do it for tools or other large pieces of equipment too. I also have $30,000 in capital equipment, which can be used for poles, transformers, other more expensive tools. So really, in the capital budget, there's $105,000 allocated for capital equipment, as well as $15,000 for smaller types of equipment.
So is that the kind of thing that we would benefit from having like a, vehicle or big equipment replacement plan?
It would, and it's my goal by May to have that. So when we make our revisions, if we need any revisions to the budget, we can actually see, okay, here's our pieces of equipment, here's what we feel their useful lives are, here's what we expect them to cost in 2006, 17, 2018, 2019. Here's where we're gonna be taking money from our capital budget and putting it towards these items. And put it on hopefully a simple to read spreadsheet that shows this, 5, 6, 7 year plan of how we can replace our trucks and different pieces of equipment. The city did a pretty good job with that, I think.
Yeah.
Mark had done a good job.
One of the things we've had as an advantage is that a lot of our trucks are newer,
Right.
they're less than 10 years old. And so with maintenance on them and the amount of miles that we drive them, and I think I mentioned last month that there's probably a couple of trucks that we need to do some body work on and those types of things. So our trucks aren't 25, 30 years old, so we haven't really done much in the last 5 years because we don't have a need at this point, but now is the time to start putting that away and thinking ahead. And the other flip side of the coin is that we have a lot of cash reserve that is available for that too if an emergency came up. So we haven't been in a position where we needed to really think about that. If an emergency came up, we would have the cash to take care of it. But we're gonna try and get on a plan and a schedule so that we identify each vehicle and what their expected lifespan is and how we're gonna get there from here.
Are more expensive vehicles like is a bucket truck, the big granddaddy price wise?
The bucket truck and a bigger truck, those.
250,000, or what's the number on that?
Depending on the height and the bells and whistles you get on that, it's in the 250 to 400 range, right? Yeah. I mean, you can spend more than that, but
Right.
So still less than a fire truck.
And the other thing that's possible too is instead of doing maybe like a project in a future year, you just say, we're just gonna buy the truck, and that's part of your capital budget.
Right.
You know, like, okay, we need $200,000 for a truck, well, out of the 900 we plan to spend, 200 is just going for a truck and we'll pay cash. Does that make sense?
we like being.
Well, I like having the plan, I think the plan aspect's kind of important, just so then you can have a better.
Right.
It's nice to have a
definitely.
plan for that, rather than
Definitely.
1 year saying, you know, our truck's old this year, we gotta buy it now. Or within the next year, it's nicer when you can, like you said, you wanna start setting aside the money now, so that you're not.
I agree.
That's where I think like the city might have gotten into trouble back then, was that they had some equipment that was okay, they didn't bother planning for it, and all of a sudden they sort of realized it's all getting old at the same time.
Right.
And even like I know one thing we did was we staggered the police car purchases, because they were happening all at the same time, so they all got old at the same time. And so the 3 vehicles were now staggered like every year or 2 years, so that, just things like that, so that you don't keep running into the big spike every few years. And I don't know what the fleet is here, and so I'm not really saying this one way or the other, but.
And I think a plan is good too from public perception, cause you will have this cash buildup and people will say, well, what's all this cash for? They don't need all this money, but if you can show, okay, this is why we're saving cash, here's the plan. We don't wanna be like some other cities that you hear about in the news that
The borrowed money.
they're just, you know, lost and completely behind.
And we don't wanna have to bond for major expenses either. So.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, even the city that had, could have applied up, what was the 5-year payment, whatever, for one dump truck, it was kind of like, really, with the kind of revenue, you think you wouldn't have to maintain a plan, so.
Now, our cash
I don't think we have
reserves-
to worry about that with that cash reserve, but.
Yeah, our cash reserves are excellent, our annual income is excellent, we're really in good shape. We've really turned the corner from where we were 8 years ago.
So, I apologize, I had a work commitment, so I apologize, I wandered in late. But what is the timeline then on the budget in terms of going through city council and all of that?
Well, we supply them this budget after this meeting,
Okay,
and then there will probably be several budget workshops. I mean, this is the way it's worked in the past. I'm not sure exactly how, but I'm guessing it'll work similarly. Dave Pasquale has let me know that, you know, we will be involved in that budget workshop process. And they have a final budget that they have a public hearing on in May.
okay.
And then the final budget is approved at the end of May, I believe, the last meeting in May, if I remember my charter correctly. So we provide them this budget now, and this is our best estimate of what the budget is,
Including our capital?
including our capital budget at this point in time. And then it'll be there for discussion over the next couple months.
Just wanna make sure we're covered.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
So while we're on the capital budget, just quick run through some of the itemized expenses with you. You know how I determined how much we have available, that's that 1.066 million. I'm only showing a budget of 950,000, 75 going towards an account for trucks, 175,000 being the second of 3 payments for the AMI system. $110,000 for labor, materials, and engineering for the completion of the Rolls-Royce CT. $455,000 for continued system upgrades in accordance with the GRP plan that we have in our packet. We can go over that plan. I believe Greg's planning to on the manager's report. $15,300 for the capitalization of principal payments for the installment purchase agreement we made on that Mack truck. $29,700 for cybersecurity, network, phone, and DAF run upgrades. I wanted this to be a placeholder with cybersecurity being at the forefront. It's already happened to Perry. And I have also been researching the possibility of the city hosting their own phone system through a voice over IP solution. Before Mark had left, I talked with him and I got with all the departments in the city, how many phones they have, how many calls they're making, what the cost they're paying per month is, getting with Betsy and Core Highcom to get an initial quote of how much it would cost for servers, annual maintenance for us to host our own system. And I show a 2-year payback with, if I'm just remembering from the top of my head, potentially a $300,000 to $500,000 savings for the city over a 10-year period. So for that equipment, there would be some upfront cost for the servers and new phones and things like that, but I just wanted a place for computer, software, phone type of equipment if we were to go that route this fiscal year. And then $30,000 for poles, transformers, tools, and then $60,000 for the Lowell Energy Center aesthetic upgrade. You'll remember that, I think last meeting we took that 60, put it towards the rolls. We still wanna do something, so. And invite any feedback or comments, anything you think I might be missing in terms of capital dollars or the vision of the board. I think this takes into account current projects we have going on and things we wanna do, so.
Yes, for the vehicle replacement fund, are there other big things that aren't vehicles that kind of depreciate in a similar fashion? Or, like, I don't know if there's some kind of equipment that'll wear out after 10 years, or is it, I just don't know what.
That'd be a good
Many
question
years, I mean, is there
for
like a-
Mark, but transformers are big. I mean, poles are huge. I mean, they're expensive. The substation is a big asset of ours, the transmission line, but we're having substation work done now. Yes, transformers depreciate, but as Tom has always said, they can last forever.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I guess just that,
a lot of the equipment will flow through this 4160 to 12470/system upgrades.
oh, yeah, okay,
So when we do major projects, that includes our labor, contractor labor, a lot of poles and equipment. That's like an all-encompassing, I mean, if we were to redo a street, all that equipment and material would flow through to that line item.
okay,
So it's really capitalized, it's not, unless it's maintenance, it doesn't
Right.
get expensed.
okay. And then on the budget, there was the trucks and transportation expense.
Yes.
Is that different than the actual vehicles themselves? Like, is that,
That trucks and transportation expense could be the annual inspection, oil changes, a light goes out, our guys inspecting the truck every morning, more maintenance type of things, not improving the useful life.
okay,
Yeah, stuff like that. Somebody hit our bumper and we have to go spend $600, you know, something like that.
right,
Yeah. I did include a graph for you, just highlighting operating revenue, operating expenses, purchase power expenses, operating income or loss, and net income, just to give you a snapshot of where we've been the last few years and how the budget falls into line with that.
so I guess what I was noticing here is I was just wondering that there's been like sort of a small, like, steady, granted it's only 3 years, but, or 2 years really, decrease in the net income. And I know kind of part of that's because it kind of spiked in 2015, but reading that and then the expenses kind of gradually going up as you kind of expect. Like, at what point do we look at, you know, the rate changes are just, you know, I know you were saying that you didn't think we'd need one next year, but I know you, or we have a rate study coming up soon, or is?
Yeah,
I thought we were doing that in the spring, summer, something like that.
yeah, we do need to do it this year, it's just,
Okay.
for whatever reason, it's just got put on the back burner, but we do need to do that. Kinda how I look at rates is right now, we're generating enough money to fund capital projects without issuing debt.
Mm-hmm.
And with small growth, in terms of load and requirements,
Mm-hmm.
and just small rate increases, we wouldn't need this large rate increase. Now, we'll see what the study says, but I have to take new classes, and it just doesn't look, we've been fortunate that we, you know, Greg has been able to add ventures. So, that's a huge, I mean, we've added Root Lowell's, really improved their size, and Vision's coming to town.
Mm-hmm.
So we're able to spread that overhead that we have here, staff salaries, insurances,
Right.
benefits, over more kilowatt hours. So that's helped mitigate rate increases.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think we're in a good spot. I do.
And I think it's good, I remember, I still.
Right,
there's
you
that
want the
notion
one or
of
two.
Yeah, just a continuous, but the other thing is just, at some point, just being able to look at the impact of as we project out, the impact of a rate change to the long-term kind of health of the income and everything else that, because what's hard, I guess, just for me because I kind of, being on a board, I'm sitting at the 90,000 foot view of this, and I see there's okay, we had that nice spike in 2015, it's gonna slightly go down for the income, and I know we've shown other places our plan for where we want our actual, what do we call that, the money we're trying to save up for the, adjuster.
Okay.
I forget the term for that, in front of blank.
The
but-
reserve?
Yeah, the reserve.
Right.
But to kind of reconcile this kind of going down a little bit with the office expenses kind of going up, and just, it'd be nice to see at some point, like if we, you know, this maybe would come with a rate study, that if we put a rate here or here, if we don't change it, it looks like this in 5 or 10 years, if we do change it, it looks like this, and,
I think we did do that, Andrew, when we did, last month when we did the long-range projection, Steve showed you a graph, and we had some placeholders built in for a 1 to 2% rate adjustment every year out to 2026, and we showed you the graphs that went with that.
yeah.
And they did all end up going the same direction as we go out the next 15 years. So this is just a snapshot
Yeah,
of what's
right.
happened now,
Yeah.
but on the long-range plan, those graphs are shown, we showed you last month.
Another thing,
Okay.
this is net income. Like I said, net income doesn't always reflect cash flow.
Right.
Because
understand
our depreciation is increasing because, hey, we've just done 2 major turbine projects in the biodigester. So your net income's gonna be lower because your depreciation is higher. We also had in 2015, we had the King Milling incident. Some of the revenue had to be
Right.
booked in that year instead of the previous year.
Mm-hmm.
And we had like the adjustment to the MERS because we were more funded than we thought, so we had like $80-some thousand benefit.
Yep.
That wasn't cash in our bank, but it just shows up on the income statement, so.
So if you did a standard
Yeah.
deviation on that line, it
Yeah.
would be a lot smoother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and maybe I should
plus it's only 4 years,
Right.
so it's kind of hard to,
Right.
and maybe that's just part of it, it's just sort of this chart is helpful, but because it's only showing 4 years, it can be easy to
Right. So
misinterpret.
when we do get the budget approved with the city, then we'll go back and redo that
Performance.
the
Long-range projection.
long-range projection
Yeah.
model, and that'll have the graph with it
Okay.
at that point.
Yeah, I should rephrase it, there probably will be some rate increase in the future, 1-2%, but I don't think it's gonna be, you know, just for the viewers, it's not gonna be like this 5, 7, 10% rate increase that we're gonna need.
Right.
You know what I mean?
The one anomaly that we see right now, just from our perspective, without having the rate study done or the cost of service study done, is that probably the cost of service component is lower than it needs to be. But the
Right.
per kilowatt hour price might be a little higher than it needs to be,
Mhm.
because we've been putting that into the PCA.
Right.
So when we redo that and look at the whole thing as a package, we don't see that there'll be much increase in the rate itself, but the cost of service rate will probably go up, and the per kilowatt hour rate, including the PCA, will probably go
Mm-hmm.
up. I mean, that's just, again,
Yeah.
a 90,000
I do
feet
remember
perspective,
that part.
so.
Okay,
So
good, yeah, thank you.
I may have missed this, but I'm just noticing a couple sort of significant differences.
Okay.
For example, fuel. And you may have already talked about that before I walked in, so I apologize.
We did, but we can talk about it. Is your question why we're projecting
just-
lower
Um,
this year than what we had budgeted, or?
well, we're projecting pretty low this year, but I'm just wondering, like, if I look at this year, I mean, it's a significant difference when you look at actual from 2014, actual 2015. Our budget for 2016 was huge, and then you look at actual projected
Mm-hmm.
versus the budget. I'm just trying to understand the difference in those numbers.
Is that just because the cost of fuel's gone way down, but then we're kind of not expecting it to keep going down? That's what, because
Is
that's
that
kind of
what
the
you're
same question I
budgeting
asked
for?
you.
Right.
It's change in fuel cost.
Change in fuel costs, but also the market
Mhm.
has been so cheap that we can't get in our, I mean, we can get our turbine in at an effective price, but the market is just really cheap right now, so we're not
Okay.
able to get it in as much as we had hoped.
Okay.
But I still wanna have some money there, tell you, okay, we're gonna spend 5,000. Oh, well, now we're, you know what I mean?
Yeah, if it's a hot summer, you're still gonna wanna run.
Right.
Right. The hotter the summer, the more likely we are to run. If we wanna have a placeholder there, even though we haven't, it's been cool summers, the last 2 summers, and the fact that the gas prices are down, we didn't budget as much as we had last year when the price was higher. So those 2 things
Okay.
together, we think we budgeted enough, even though it looks like it's less, it's more.
Again, I may have missed this. What are we planning to do with the office building that we have?
If we do not move, I'd like to
Difference in-
get new floors
Okay.
as well as tear down the rest of the wallpaper that's started to fall off and paint the rest of it.
Okay. And there was one other thing I saw that I wasn't sure, can you find it? It was something with installation, where did I see it?
Installation?
Yeah.
Oh, I did wanna mention that there's a new subdivision coming to town. Mark, if you wanna,
Yeah,
Yeah,
customer
it's
installation
across from
expense.
Lowell Township Hall, 15 homes.
How many?
And
You said 50?
15.
Oh, 15, okay.
15 homes, and there would be some work that we'd have to do on
So
the
that's
front
what,
end
under
for that.
distribution,
Yes.
that's what that expense is?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So it's just prepping for that subdivision?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
If there aren't any more further questions,
I would make a motion to approve this, budget, this, draft budget, to send over to the, city council.
We have a motion and support. If there's no further discussion,
Just a point of clarification, are we doing 2 separate, one for the regular budget, one for the capital, or are we lumping them all together?
All together.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that includes capital.
yes.
That's right.
Okay.
all right, we have a motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and moving on to informational items, the first being performance data. We had a very good month of sales. Actually, you will find out in a little bit, not as much as I budgeted, but compared to last year, we had a increase. The billing cycle this month, even though it was February, just because you realize you're reading from the middle of January to the middle of February, was 32 to 34 days. Last year was 28 to 30 days. So just by comparing billing days, we would have more sales this month, this year, compared to last month this year, or this month, last year. So that accounts for really the 9 to 11% increase that you see in the sales. The customers really changed from last month, residential 2285 to 2268. And the reason for that, in January, there was a lot of move-in, move-outs, so there were the same address getting multiple bills. Does that make sense? So it shows up as a residential customer. So once they're officially moved out, they won't get a bill in February, and that's the reason for the decrease in the number of residential customers. But overall, a strong month. Looking at information from prior months, electric requirements from December of 2015 compared to 2014. Both the requirements and demand were down around 3.4 to 3.6%. Not significant, pretty standard. No changes in the quarter ending data. The next update will be April 30th, 2016 for that portion of the report. Moving on to investments in cash. Cash was up just under 4% for the month and 61.84% over the past year. And that's mainly due to we haven't incurred we haven't paid many of our larger invoices for capital equipment that we've approved. Those will be coming due in the next couple months. We should get a couple $100,000 plus worth of invoices that we've approved for Doug's equipment. So, but overall, we're in a very good position with cash. Moving to delinquents, you'll see an improvement, a significant improvement in the first two line items compared to the previous month. And this is because a large commercial customer has caught up. So that's good news. We're down to $24,749 after the shut-off and just over $2,000 at the end of the month, and only $160 from the previous month. So good job to all staff there. Any questions so far on anything? Don't want to rush through it too quick. But last thing, aging analysis. This just reflects that larger commercial customer catching up. An outstanding balance of $48,327 compared to last month of just under $60,000. So 19% decrease. So good month. If there are any questions, we'll go on to the income statement. As I said, we had a good month in sales compared to last year, but slightly under my monthly budget. We were 2.96% under in terms of sales revenue, 2.88% in overall revenue, but we're still 0.47% over year to date. So we're meeting our revenue requirements. A lot of the other expenses came in fairly close to budget. The biggest thing to note is purchase power. We were significantly under budget, I believe $62,000. And this was mainly due to the energy services project. I had expected some of the bilateral contracts that we had entered into, that we would have been invoiced for those already. That'll show up next month. And then with the Bell River and Campbell line items, I had talked earlier that the Mtpa is not invoicing us for as much additional debt as I had thought. So that flows through on those bills. So that's the main reason for the decrease in purchase power expenses. Moving down to distribution, customer accounting, marketing. And some of the percents look, 10%, 15%, but really just a few $1,000 here or there. Over budget on admin and general outside services, mainly due to salaries. Greg and I spread our payroll time over a number of GLs, but we spent a lot of our meetings at Mtpa or APPA or strategic planning type of stuff. So all of our payroll has really flowed into this item, not other GLs like customer accounting or supervision or things like that. Office maintenance, just slightly under budget. Employee benefits, as we talked about earlier, were over budget in this area, mainly due to PTO payouts and MERS costs that we incurred due to Thomas's retirement. So that's all right. And then moving down to total operating expenses, we are again very, very close year to date, just 0.28% off budget, meaning that our operating income is slightly over budget for the year, 5.73% or $41,000. and then flowing all the way down to net income, over budget on net income for the month, 138 to a budget of 106. And again, year to date, we're sitting off really well at $37,000 over budget. So 8 months in, we're looking good. We'll be able to fund those capital projects that we budgeted for last year. Are there any questions about anything in particular? If not, we go to capital budget and expenses. You have 2 pages there. The first, which lists the projects individually, the second by group. Really, there was only a couple of changes from last month. The major change was an invoice that came in for the Rolls-Royce CT project. And then we did purchase a few meter packages, and we incurred the monthly payment for the vehicle Mack truck. So really not much change besides the one invoice for the rolls, but in the future months, this is $658,000 that we have remaining will start to be eaten up. Any questions on the capital budget? If not, outage summary, 3 outages in the month of February, all due to trees falling on primary or lines, 2 of which happened the same day, and I believe Perry helped out in one of them, so thank you, Perry. We did have, it was a windy day.
I helped out, so that the audience knows, by knowing what fuses had popped, and called Mark and said, this location, so.
You weren't on the pole.
I wasn't
you
on
weren't
the
touching
pole,
the
I
wires.
wasn't in the truck, I wasn't, no, it was just
All OSHA
knowing,
compliant.
You were a spotter.
knowing where to look.
That's right.
Right.
Unless you're saying that this 40-minute outage would have been 45 or 50 if it wasn't for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Could you in the future do something with the shading on here so it's a little easier to see the numbers, please? Maybe it's just me being old.
Yes, we did get a new copier, and I believe that's the problem.
Okay.
So I'll adjust the settings.
Cause it's like, wow, I know I'm getting old, but.
You know, I hate using ink, so yes, we will adjust
Okay.
it. So 3 outages due to weather. We're still at 99.97% available as of this month, slightly down from last year.
So when is it that we get the summary from whoever, like once a year, don't we get like a summary of the outage data that we were,
Yes.
I forget when you said that happened.
Ron, I believe, just sent it to me in the last week or 2. I haven't really had a chance to review it. We'll include that next month in the packet.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
We should also announce now that we, for this last year, did win the first place in the safety award with Mtpa. So we have another first place safety award.
Wow.
Hanging up. So it's 10 out of the last 12 years that we've received
Wow.
a safety award from Mtpa.
Awesome.
That is huge.
Congratulations.
Despite Perry's help.
well, that'll be this annual year, which affects next year, so who knows next year.
Never mind.
Going on to the manager's report, Greg did allow me to lead tonight's meeting, just for transitionary purposes, but seeing as this is his last meeting, I can't let him get out of one last manager's report, so take it away.
Alrighty, the update on MPPA, MMEA, our service organizations. I mentioned last month that at MPPA we did strategic planning. Steve and I both attended the strategic planning day in Lansing. It went very well. We had 100% attendance. That's the first time that we've had a full 100% attendance probably in a couple of strategic planning cycles. So it was important to everybody, and everybody got there, and I was greatly appreciative of that, because the more input you get, the better the process is. And one of the things that came out, I think probably one of the important things is, and again, one of the things that I've been trying to stress over my 2 years as chairman of that organization,